Aloha, love tribe. Happy Thankful Thursday. We have a lot to be thankful for today. One thing I'm ultra thankful for is that Ross is free. That is one of the coolest things to be thankful for. And, you know, something in the topic of this episode is going to be the artistic collaborations for Bitcoiners. And my two guests today are wonderful creatives and artists and educators. And what is so cool about Bitcoin is it brings so many people together from so many different walks of life to make something magic happen. And so Ross got free obviously because of his mom and because of the entire Bitcoin community. And so what I really want to emphasize today is the magic of collaboration, the magic of coming together, the magic of asking questions, raising your hand, not being afraid, and standing up for something that you believe in, and using your God-given talents to make the world a better place. And so my two guests today are two men who I am so madly in love with and love their art, love their creativity, love their contribution to the Bitcoin space. They've had over 10 collaborations together, and I would imagine there's going to be a whole bunch more. So welcome, Bevan Waite and Tomer Strolight. How's it going, guys? Woohoo!
Woo! Awesome.
Yay. So
Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah.
I know Bevan and I, we talked like a couple months ago. I'm like, you want to do like a thing with Tomer and we'll come back? And he's like, yeah. And so it's been a little bit of uh, a delay, but everything is in divine alignment with right timing. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves a little bit and like let everybody here know who you are? I know most people probably already know you, but if we've got some new listeners, I'd love for them to know, more about each of your work. And so Bevan, I'm going to have you go first. And welcome, you guys, and happy Thursday.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah. So my background, I guess, how I got into Bitcoin. I was a filmmaker for a while. I went to school for architecture, so I have kind of a background in design. And then I moved to the mountains. I got really into skiing, and I kind of like changed my whole career into like this filmmaking thing at the time. Yeah, I just ended up making films in the outdoor space for a while. And throughout that, like I didn't really have a typical job. It was a lot of freelance work, a lot of creative kind of gig economy type stuff. And so I didn't have access to, like a 401k or, and any of these like retirement accounts that, you get from more traditional jobs. I had to pay for my own health insurance and stuff like that. And so that's kind of like, as my business started to like gain a little bit of momentum in the film world. I started to think about like, well, like how am I gonna retire eventually? Not that that's anywhere close for me right now, but eventually, like you got to think about it. And so in doing that research, I kind of stumbled across Bitcoin. I had been exposed to it by a few people that I knew throughout college and whatnot, and but I dismissed it for a while, and it took me a while to dive deeper down the rabbit hole and really kind of discover the problems in with fiat money and with our current monetary system. And that's really what energized me eventually, was kind of discovering that Bitcoin was this new system that operated outside of this fiat monetary system, that was really kind of bad and insidious in many ways. And so yeah, I started learning about it, listening to podcasts, reading books, and articles. I think Swan was a good resource for me at the time, when I was getting into the Bitcoin only space. They had many articles that Tomer himself had written, and so I was scrolling through their canon.
Mhm.
I think it's called the canon, Swan canons or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are a bunch of rabbit hole things that they've like organized and curated. And so Tomer's articles were all in those canon rabbit holes, they really spoke to me. And eventually, I got to the point where I was like, I am like very, very highly confident about this technology, and I really want to help people understand it differently, because I was seeing some gross misunderstandings, not only in my friend group, but just generally, through age groups too. Young people like there was a lot of people misunderstanding what Bitcoin was and is, and what it stands for. And so I started making little films, and I started Bit Intelligence, which was a YouTube channel, is my YouTube channel really. And so I'm not a writer myself, and Tomer's writing was really speaking to me throughout this experience, and so I started like using his articles to help me create these films. And at the time, I was really getting into AI, image generation and animations, and so yeah, I like started to use Tomer's articles and then make these AI image generated kind of animations behind them, put a little bit of light music behind them, just create my own flavor of Bitcoin content. And then I went to Pacific Bitcoin and I approached Tomer and told him to watch one of the videos. And then yeah, it's kind of the rest is history. We started collaborating on some of his articles. Ended up kind of culminating in the legendary treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto, which right now has like almost 150 or 250,000 views on Swan's channel, that is by far the most viewed video that I've ever put out. So that's a big accomplishment for me, big accomplishment for Tomer, and yeah, and now I've been just working in the Bitcoin space. So it's been really fun, and it's been wonderful to get to know all these people that I've gotten to know since.
I know, it's quite a blessing, right? And so, Bevan, I love this, and I love hearing that, you were, taking what your skill is and then combining it with someone else's, right? Chocolate and peanut butter. And obviously Tomer's just a prolific, gorgeous writer. You're a wonderful filmmaker and storyteller. So it was so cool that you reached out to him and you did the thing first and then you showed it to him. It wasn't just like, hey, can I go do the thing? And so I think that's really neat. So Tomer, I'd love for you to kind of let everybody know who you are, what you've been working on, obviously generational wealth, why Bitcoin, the kids book, you're rocking and rolling over here. And then I want to talk about you guys' collaboration. And then we're going to also talk about, inspiring other people to, get excited about their own collaborations in the space. So thanks, Bevan, and welcome, Tomer.
Have to unmute my mic. Yeah, where to begin? For me, I've been interested, and interested is an understatement. I've been obsessed with Bitcoin since I first heard about it back in 2013. I didn't really know how to contribute in a significant way to the community for a long time. I mean, I spent my first few years in Bitcoin just studying it and trying to form an opinion on it versus altcoins and it as a solution and all this kind of stuff. So I spent countless hours studying it before I really produced anything. I became a little bit more involved in 2017 at the time of the block size wars or the fork wars, whatever you want to call them. I started writing pseudonymously on the Bitcoin subreddit at that point in time, making the case for SegWit versus the hard fork versions that were being promoted of Bitcoin. And then around 2020, when COVID hit and the whole world got all kinds of crazy, was the time for me when I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but it's going to be dedicated to Bitcoin. And I decided to go all in on my time and energy on Bitcoin. And I figured at that point in time that maybe I could provide a unique voice in terms of Bitcoin education. There was Twitter, which was like 280 character things, and there were lots of people putting out really long essays, and there were plenty of podcasts. But I thought maybe I could write some concise articles. It would all be like in the 2-minute range to read, so not asking too much, but being able to provide a lot more than what you can put in a tweet. And so I started writing a series that I called Why Bitcoin, that were all like 2 minutes long of a read, had the words why and Bitcoin in the title. And I set myself this goal that they would teach newcomers something, but that they would also be impressive and illuminating to established Bitcoiners. So it was a bit of a challenging assignment, to simultaneously educate newbies and impress old timers. Gave me a great focus because I think I was able to provide a unique telling of many aspects of Bitcoin. And as I was doing that, I was starting to get recognition in the community, and prominent Bitcoiners were sharing my articles on Twitter. And that led me towards an introduction to Swan, which was at the time just like 15 to 20 employees. And we put together the collection of articles into an ebook. And then eventually I collaborated with an artist, Chief Monkey, and a designer.
Well, show us the book, Tomer. Pull it up.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm going to show it in a second, I
Okay.
really felt a connection to the artistic and aesthetic side of Bitcoin by the time I'd finished writing this series. And so I tried to make my writing as beautiful as I could, not just factual, but also beautiful and concise. And so I wanted to work, I made a pledge to myself that everything I do for Bitcoiners will be beautiful. And so I worked with the artist Chief Monkey to
Love
create
Chief Monkey.
why Bitcoin. And he actually, this is actually a physical work of art that he sold at auction at the Bitcoin conference in 2022.
Yep.
And it's got Satoshi in the middle contemplating. The book is 27 essays, but this work of art has 21 images of Satoshi meditating, each on a different idea that each relate to one or more essays.
And it's such a great work of art too. It's a physical work of art that's laser cut and obviously
Yeah,
very, very meticulously crafted. It's
yeah.
gorgeous. And so
And
I
the book
love it.
itself is a coffee table book. It's like
Yep.
every article just fits on a one double page spread. There's one article that's two double page spreads, but they're all laid out beautifully, and they're all short. And I get a lot of feedback that this is, for many people, their favorite book to orange pill. Other people, they keep it on their coffee table or somewhere at home, and they can give someone the book, and they only need to read 2 minutes of it to get the taste and flavor of a single article, or they can skip to a particular essay that addresses something like why are all the altcoins scams, or why does Bitcoin have to use energy, or why. So these are all articles that have like why does Bitcoin even exist? Why is it so complicated? This book answers all those questions. So that was kind of my beginning of collaborating in the artistic space with other artists in Bitcoin to make things that are beautiful for Bitcoiners. And we just keep going. I found myself writing about art in Bitcoin, and that led to someone reaching out to me saying that they wanted me to write an article about Bitcoin as generational wealth. And eventually I got around to writing that article. And when I read it aloud for the first time, I thought, wow, this sounds more like the narrative of a film than an essay. And so I found a director to work with and an editor to work with who turned that essay into a book, into a movie. Sorry, we never really published the essay except for in one very small private publication. And Bitcoin is Generational Wealth. I wish we had the link to that, but for people, well, I guess we can get it up somehow quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay,
Great.
great. And
Thanks.
I think that movie has been viewed well over 300,000 times, but I'm not 100% sure. I know there's multiple versions of it in various translations, but the YouTube version's been viewed a lot. And that came out in November of 2021. And it was a movie that moved a lot of people. It was a moving movie about Bitcoin. I know a lot of people told me it brought tears to their eyes, and it concretized the vision of a future that many Bitcoiners have. And so that was a really proud moment for me. I was really excited to do it. And I started writing more long form essays, and I ended up writing one called The Legendary Treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto. And I loved it. And I refused to publish it when I first wrote it for a full 6 months, because I thought, oh, this idea of making movies is tremendous. I'll just make a movie out of this one. The universe will help me out. But it was just as we were going into a bear market, and I didn't have the right connections. And so I ended up eventually publishing it as an essay about 6 months after I wrote it. I think I published it in September. I'd written it in March, and it went viral. It was the most read essay I'd ever written. Lots of people again told me that they cried when they read it, tears of hope and joy and all sorts of really wonderful things. And so I kept looking around for the opportunity to make a movie out of it. And then as Bevan's story goes, he and I met in Pacific Bitcoin. He told me what he was doing. I got very excited about it, and eventually, we said, oh, one big project, because many of my essays were like 10 or 15 minutes to read, and he was using AI to generate things. And I was like, well, I'd be happy to read them so that you have a human voice reading them, especially if we move on to Legendary Treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto. And it was a big project. I don't know exactly how long it took Bevan, but he created graphics for every sentence, basically, of the movie, and animated them all using the AI tools. And it came out really, really amazing. It's like a 38-minute film. So I think for to have that many views for a 38-minute film that's really about the philosophy of Bitcoin, not why the number's going to go up or this or that, but why Bitcoin is a spiritual awakening that
Yeah.
moves so many people, and what the meaning of Satoshi's actions were from a spiritual, philosophical perspective, is something that makes me really, really happy. So that's I think the story of me leading up to my life's paths intersecting with Bevan's, and us getting this number of like I know Bevan's probably made 8, 9, 10 of my other essays into movies, and they're terrific, and they're all on the Bit Intelligence site. So it's a nice way to consume the essays without having to sit down and read.
Yeah, and I think that's the magic too, guys, because it's like we think about, the 5 different learning styles, right? And some people wanna hear things, some people wanna see things, some people wanna touch things, some people wanna feel things, all this stuff. And so the fact that you guys can combine those obviously with the visual and the words and whatnot, and we think about the 5 love language and stuff. So I think it's so important for any of us creatives to go like out there and use our little zone of genius, and start putting, our work out there in the lens that feels the most uh, enlivened by our souls. Like obviously, Tomer, you're such a great prolific wordsmith, and Bevan, like what to do with visuals and sounds and how to make things transition from one place to another. And it's like, oh, whoa, what's going to happen here, And so the fact that you two can do this, again, chocolate and peanut butter combo plan is pretty cool. What's it like, Bevan, for when you take something of Tomer's, okay? So let's say you take Tomer's, written word. Um, what's your process like? How do you decide, like, do you storyboard stuff? Do you, just kind of put like a big collage of different things? Like, I'd just be curious, like, how do you come up with the visual storytelling to go along with his words?
Yeah, it's sort of like taking it not word by word, but like sentence by sentence. I'll read the article, and then oftentimes I'll like put on some classical music or something. I like listening to like classical piano. I used to play piano when I was younger, and
Mm,
although I'm not, I don't really play piano anymore. I just something about that type of music like speaks to me, and so I'll put on some music and I'll read the article and kind of just like get the vibe, like feel the emotion, kind of. And then I go into Midjourney and I just start typing in prompts. I
cool.
kind of like go between Midjourney and ChatGPT, because ChatGPT can help you create better Midjourney prompts without spending all your time, trying to think about how to create your prompt. So
Cool.
I'll like type some things in. If we're talking, I'm thinking about I can't remember the exact name, but it's like the greatest heist in history. What is
Yeah, I have an essay
Tomer? Do
called
you
"Why
remember?
Bitcoin Will End the Greatest Heist in History" in the Why Bitcoin book.
That's it.
That's the one that's like an 8-minute read.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm thinking about that one, and like, while I was reading through that, I would just like type in different sentences into Midjourney and start, generating prompts. And it's really like a subtractive, I guess, process. It's like when you're creating all these images, right? Not all of them are going to make them into the film, and the same as if you're filming it, with a camera. You're filming all this stuff, and not everything is going to actually make it into the film. You just kind of have to go through it all eventually, and then take what speaks, to the
Yeah.
story the best. And so to do that, yeah, it's just generating and generating, and then finding what matches the emotion, matches the content of the writing, and the style, and whatnot. It was really helpful, I think, Tomer, when you started to narrate these yourself, like especially with the Legendary Treasure. The AI voices are still not that great, but with like pauses and and yeah, pronunciation and stuff like that.
Yeah, knowing where to put the emphasis. Uh,
So it sounds
Yeah,
like, so what I'm
exactly.
hearing you say, Bevan, is like you've got, you're taking kind of this template of, so let's say Tomer's work, for example. I know you've done a lot of other things as well. But then you're sort of like putting some things in and letting the intuition guide you of like, yes, that feels right. Less that feels right. That feels right. And instead of just like, you don't have like this predetermined, it has to look this way or go this way. It seems like you're more in a flow state with the creative process.
Yeah, definitely. I very much let it evolve while it happens.
Yeah.
I think like planning and preparation in creative adventures are it's very important, but at the same time you also just have to like let things come up along the way. And if they do come up, you got to follow that path of thinking and that path of creativity and see where it leads. And not always, that path won't always lead to the best result, but sometimes you just have to follow it to figure out that that's not the best result, and then follow another path. But yeah, like I said, it's very subtractive process. Like you got to generate or film a whole ton of stuff, and then kind of just pick and choose and cut things down until it seems like it plays well, and it the visuals add to the music and to the writing, and it's really like a trifecta approach. Like there's the article, and then there's the visuals, and then there's the music, and all together those three things can produce like emotion really well. I mean, each one of those things can produce emotion, but together they can really have a powerful impact, I think.
I was just sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I was looking up because I forgot the name of the book. But Rick Rubin, have you guys read the book, The Creative Act? Oh
I
Oh,
man,
haven't.
it's so good. Do you know who Rick Rubin is? Like he helped produce the Beastie Boys. He's one of the most prolific music
Oh
producers
wow, cool.
on earth. And he's this like, Zen dude with the long beard and looks like Santa Claus kind of, but he's just like he's produced some of the most prolific acts on earth, and really went through his creative process. And the book is called The Creative Act. I highly recommend it. I listen to books on audio, but there's all the chopped up stuff on YouTube. But he talks about the first iteration of a creative process is just like get all the ideas, like just pull them all together, like there's nothing that's not on the table, right? And just get excited, let it be there, and then let that magic, that divinity, that source, that inspiration, that intuition kind of guide you to be like, oh right, this can go here with that, and this can go over here. Oh, whoa, what's over here? And so not getting hung up on thinking that it has to be this rigid experience. And so because of that, he's been, you know, like multi-billion dollars worth of record sales and whatnot. And he's funny because he's very much like, I don't know how to read or write music. He's like, I have good taste. He's like, I know what feels right. I
yeah.
know what the audiences want. And I feel similar to that in my DJ. I'm not a billionaire ball of dollar producer like him, but like it's the vibe, right? And so it's like when your taste and your vibe can like resonate with your audience. And then when it comes through you authentically, and you give yourself permission to kind of play and mix and match, I think that's where the magic can happen. And so I love hearing that's part of your process naturally already. But I highly recommend The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. Like, what is such a great, great, great book. Tomer, what about you? Like, do you have, when you did Why Bitcoin, did you have like, did you just kind of throw it all out there and then start organizing and segmenting things, or
Yeah,
what was your process with
it
that
was a layered
particularly?
process. Like at first I was writing about Bitcoin, and I had this gimmicky idea to do short educational, of it interesting to all comers, and with the words "why" and Bitcoin in the title, and that came to me over the course of a couple of months. I think is how it took me a while to get it going. I found my flow state with it, and then it was like I was waking up in the morning with essays that came to me in my sleep. I was really resonating, really tuned into a particular vein of the message of Bitcoin at the time, and I'm really happy with how a lot of the stuff that I've written has held up over time. Bitcoin changes so much, and so many things happen, but at the very heart and core of Bitcoin, it is immalleable. And I think that that's what I was really tuned into when I was writing those pieces. But they came to me in whatever order they came to me in, and that was the order I was writing them, because I was treating it as a blog. And when it came time to laying it out as a book, I actually spent dozens of hours probably finding the perfect order and retitling them and making minor edits to them so that their flow was linear, because a book is a linear process. And I mean, a blog is too, but it was what it was. So the book is really, really tightly edited, tightly organized, highly organized, and logically ordered. And that took a long time. I was shocked. When Chief Monkey is the guy who put me up to making the book. He said, "Look, I made a book out of the Bitcoin Baba Kakra, which I have here somewhere, but I'm not going to step away to get it, which was a work of art that he said, "You've already written the book. It should be easy." And I naively assumed it would be. So embarked on trying to make a book out of it. And it ended up being, hours of editing every day for 60 to 90 days. Just
Tomer, I know. I remember when we first. I don't know if it was our first interview or at some point you were telling me that you thought like, yeah, no problem, cool. Chiefy's going to help me, and it's going to be great.
yeah,
We're just going to do a couple layouts here, and no problem. We'll put some
yeah,
words and a couple pictures. It'll be fine. And then you were just like, it was so painstaking to do that
yeah. And it was,
because you did create a work of art. And I think that's what's
yeah,
really neat about you, and that's obviously why I love you and admire you as a fellow creative. And I remember when we first met, I was like, you got to check out Ram Dass's book, the Be Here Now book, because it reminded me of why Bitcoin and how
mm,
it was so, it's a work of art, it's not just some book that you just, oh, cool, I'm going to read about Bitcoin. No,
yeah.
you made something very, very special for people, to have and to give
Yeah.
copies to others, so I think, you're, the effort and the proof of work that you guys did on it really shows. And so thank you for making that for us.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was yeah, I don't want to say it was a painful experience. It was a very big experience.
Yeah.
When I say that though, I reflect on it, it did discourage me from publishing other books because it's it's so much work to get a book done and to get a book done right. To like
Totally.
and especially when you're making it artistic with illustrations or photographs or something. It's one thing to publish text and let it flow. There is a text only version of Why Bitcoin available on Amazon in trade size. But if you really want to experience the
Yeah,
fullness
you
of the
need the
book,
pictures,
you
you
got
need
to
the
get the coffee
color.
table.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can get the coffee table version as a free PDF if you want. That's at swan.com/whybitcoin. So if you want to sample, if you want to experience the content before turning it into a physical concrete book for yourself, you can absolutely just get it at that address, swan.com/whybitcoin.
And well, and then also with Bevan, with you too, because obviously, I mean, I know how long it takes just to edit a JPEG for gosh sakes. And then, going and doing movies and doing things where you've got to like get the frame and, oh, get this person's face over here or anything that you're doing. It's like the micro details that you guys do for your work is people don't understand what goes on in the background unless you're an artist, unless you're actually in the, in the field kind of doing these things. And so, they think like, oh, look, you made a 12-minute video or an 18-minute video or a 40-page book. And it's like, oh no, this took like hundreds of hours to do this little tiny little snippet, and for me, even as a DJ, it's like, and I never plan my sets like, but I practice and I know my music and I have like a monster collection. So, I mean, a 1 hour DJ set could take me 100 hours just to kind of play around and get new music and see what's going to happen. And then I never know. And then people are like, oh, you're just playing music. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's a little bit more than that. But like, can you help people understand? Because somebody just put in the comment, and I'm not going to put it up, Bevan, but there was a little bit of a like, oh, what do you mean you're using AI for your art? And I'm like, AI is the coolest thing ever. Like, but that's amazing, So can you talk a little bit about the AI integration into your workflow? And I know, Tomer, you do natural writing, but I think AI has a place to a certain degree for us writers, but it also isn't like you don't want your writing to be AI writing, but it can be a tool to assist. So Bevan, I'll have you go first with like how AI has been helping you as an artist.
Yeah, I think it's goes back to what you just said. It's like really just a tool to assist, and a tool to allow you to do things that you couldn't have done before. So, like for
Yeah.
example, my whole YouTube channel, like Bit Intelligence, my first video on that channel, like I'd never done content like that before, and like sure, I'd go back and look at it. It's like a little cringy, uh, but it was like it was a way for me to explore making content that I had never made before and only because of these AI tools existing. And like, sure, I was like kind of interested in learning them too. So it was almost like an outlet for me to like learn how to kind of use these tools because there was this AI buzz. But at the same time, the tools are really, really rudimentary. They still are, I think, kind of rudimentary. I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see some really incredible stuff come out.
Yeah.
But like if you think about it like that, like as like a calculator or like a just something to augment your own experience and
Yeah.
creativity, especially with writing too, for example. Like I think like ChatGPT or any of these other large language models can be used to like stimulate ideas. They don't have to be the one prompt, here's my essay type situation, but you can like have a conversation with it. Hey, I'm thinking about this. I feel like I'm not, I want to put this and this together. Like help me come up with a plan of like how to do this. That's how I use it a lot, especially with research as well. It's just like a tool to like kind of formulate a plan to then execute with your own, brain cells. But then like again with the images and whatnot, like I just wouldn't be able to make art like Midjourney makes art. A lot of digital
Yeah.
creators, they have, they can make a certain type of art, but then Midjourney just makes a different type of art. And so if you think about like, and I'm not necessarily like a digital artist like that, but if you think of someone that is coming with a lot of like Illustrator or Photoshop experience, merging those skills with like image generation and Midjourney, just like
Yeah.
automatically you just have so much more capability between that collaboration between man and machine, or woman and machine, that it can really augment your ability to create things. So that's my perspective. Of course, like some of it is like you're just generating and curating, for me specifically with like the videos, but at the same time it goes back to like the trifecta of visuals and audio and music,
Yeah.
all together coming together.
Yeah, and it's such an inspirational tool too, like you said, like the stuff that it will spit out based on what your prompts are, you're just like, "Oh, whoa, my brain wouldn't have conceptualized that way of looking at that image," or those sets of images, and so, I think from that lens, it's really important to be open-minded, obviously, as creatives to like, really? You gave me a whole 'nother set of crayons with all these colors? Heck yeah, let's play, instead of, well, these are the only colors in the rainbow, so you're only supposed to play with these. No. And I think it's like anybody who's a creative on earth, if there are new tools to help you extract new ways of looking at things, whether it's verbally or visually or auditorially, it's very like, let's go play. Like, cool, there's more toys, and so it can be just an inspirational tool. It can also be an organizational tool. And I know with like, ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of that stuff with Claude, if I put something in and I'm like, make me a sales page, I need like a Frank Kern sales page for something, and it'll spit out the order of stuff. And then I put the content in, and it just makes my life a little bit more
Exactly.
organized instead of having to go try to find a template for that, And so I think there's,
Right, or
the
brainstorming
inspirational
it
side,
yourself,
and there's
yeah.
also the organizational side too, which is cool, but you don't use it as your only tool, for
Yeah,
me, like when I'm taking breaks, if I'm doing, some deep work, or if I'm getting grumpy on Twitter because of what's going on the planet. Tomer caught me the other day. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm having a moment, dude. Like they haven't freed Ross yet. What's going on?" Um, but I'll go hit Midjourney because I just want to see the colors. And for some reason, looking at those colors that it spits out into my face, obviously you guys see I'm a colorful girl. It soothes my little soul. So it's therapeutic in some ways as well. So Tomer, what about you? I saw you have something in your hand. It looks like you're going to
Yeah.
pull up.
Like for me, I'm tempted to use the expression the jury's still out on how, but not like whether AI is good or not, but how exactly to use AI in beneficial ways and not
Yeah.
in detrimental ways,
Yeah.
especially as a writer. And I'll get into it. This thing that I grabbed in, I think it was in late 2022. I was isolated at my cottage, which isn't mine, but at a cottage that I have access to because I had COVID, and so I was staying away from the family. And Fractal and Crypt, the artist who made this,
Yay, Fractal!
said, "Can I show you something? I've locked myself in a room for 21 days or 27 days with Midjourney," and this is when it was still really early. Like
Right.
it might have been 2021, but no, I'm pretty sure it was 2022 because of the COVID. That's when I had COVID, and he had authored a graphic novel called The Time Chain Codex, which was based off
Mhm.
of a series of like what happens when we become multiplanetary and Bitcoin mining has time delay at light speed and all this kind of stuff. This is this is my sealed version. I can go and grab another version, another copy if you want to take a look at it. But he actually went to the trouble of using AI to create a full graphic novel around this narrative, and then he and I spent, because the text AI was nothing to use at that time, he and I spent about that whole week while I was in isolation, editing this novel, making sure that the physics made sense and that the story made sense and that the continuity was good. And so that was another great collaboration experience for me. He's really the creator and author of that, but I'm the editor. And it was a wonderful experience of getting exposed to AI. When it comes to using AI for writing, I'm a little bit more restrained about my enthusiasm for it. I think it is an amazing research tool. Like, as they feed more and more data into the AI tools, you can do the kind of research that used to take 30 minutes on Google in 10 seconds using AI. Like, give me all the statistics on something by country and this and that. And it's generally now producing accurate results, although you actually have to spend more time fact checking and verifying than you do have on the research, which is kind of interesting. But when it comes to thinking or creative expression using AI in writing, I'm still um, I'm still not. I don't want to say I'm not impressed. I feel that it doesn't produce a quality of writing that is captivating. It produces an academic or a silly version, but I can almost always tell when it's AI that's writing it, and I think that becomes a discouragement to the reader to read it. It's like they'll take what they see is written by AI and then ask an AI to summarize it. So we're kind of getting to this point where we're all going to have all these agents talking to one another, and we're going to be leaving ourselves out of the picture. And that's a very unpredictable situation to put ourselves into, and we're in it. I'm not even discouraging, I'm just saying, like, you're in a situation where if you have to write a letter to some bureaucrat or some official, you might use AI to write it, and they're going to receive it, and they're going to use AI to reduce it into something, and then they'll use AI to respond to you. So you're not really speaking to people anymore. You're speaking to AI, and AI is speaking to AI, and AI is speaking to people, and back and forth. And it's creating this intermediate uh, disintermediation between people talking to each other directly
Mhm.
that I'm bothered by personally, right? Other people may
So
not be
so
bothered by it.
so let's talk about that, Tomer, because obviously yesterday we saw, I don't know if you guys saw, but President Trump had, I think it was yesterday. My brain is like squished
Yeah,
this whole week, but he had, Larry Ellison and Sam
yeah.
Altman and the other guy from
Elon
SoftBank.
Musk was there, I think.
Yeah, talking about the $500 billion thing they're trying to go build, which, everyone's like, oh, it's going to be a CIA AI thing, la la la. Like, we are in this soup of
Yeah,
technology that is this great tool, this great gift, this great opportunity for us to play with, right? But it could be a Venus flytrap, and like you're in it, and that's obviously what we're
yeah.
worried about as Bitcoiners with CBDCs and digital surveillance, et cetera. And so, how can we? Two things. How do we, stay connected as humans with our words, with our art, with our messages, with talking to each other? Like, as far as you guys know, I'm a real person talking to you, but it could be the Val AI that I made. You don't know. Like, you
Yeah,
really don't know.
it is getting to that point where there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that I see on video where I'm like squinting hard and saying, does that have like some dead giveaway that it's AI, or is it really a person? Like, what's going on here? Generally the slow motion and the limited amount of movement is the giveaway, but the giveaway keeps changing, right? It used to be that people's eyes were distorted or that they had the wrong number of fingers, and that's all been corrected. But it's less, to me, it's less about detecting whether it's AI and actually, if you ask AI to think for you, and this is the part where I'm probably most able to be articulate about it. It's like, if you use it as a crutch and you keep using it as a crutch and you don't, like, you let it do the thinking for you, the danger is not only that you stop learning how to think, but that you think the ideas that were fed to you by AI are your ideas,
Mhm.
because, like, you wrote it, you generated the prompt that said, tell me what's going on. And then you're being programmed by the AI, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And so I think when it comes to thinking, you have to think for yourself. And you can use AI to gather data and facts that help you string together the ideas. But if you don't exercise your ability to think critically, to put together statements and deduce logical, like valid logical connections from them, you become very vulnerable. You become vulnerable to not being able to use your mind. And so that's one of the things that I'm particularly concerned about. I don't have a fix for it, and I'm not saying that everything was perfect beforehand. Like I think we've dumbed ourselves down as a society because we have so many tools that facilitate, that are crutches for thinking. Right? Nobody
Yeah.
remembers phone numbers anymore because you don't need to. Nobody is particularly good at doing math in their head anymore because we've got calculators that are built into everything. And so there's just this general erosion of mental sharpness that we're all struggling with, and I worry that AI is making it worse. So I don't know how to make it better, but that's my caution. I still don't use AI to write stuff. I've tried a couple of times to see if I was happy with it, and yeah, you can make a short-term article out of a tweet,
Yeah.
but I think again, people are reading much less because I guess there's this phenomenon. Like I remember when personal video recorders first came out, and you could have it record every episode of Seinfeld for you, and like we did, and then we stopped watching it because it's like, oh, the machine watched it for us. So we stopped watching TV altogether when TV became more on demand and accessible and less scarce in the sense of, oh, it's 9 o'clock on a Thursday, we got to get to the TV before the show starts and run to the washroom during the commercial breaks. Like all of that changed, and we actually watched less long form entertainment afterwards. And I think the same thing's happening with long form writing. People are looking for shorter and shorter stuff because there's so many different things, because the ability to produce stuff is so much easier. So we're in chaos right now, and chaos always settles into some form of order before going into chaos again. And we're just kind of in that chaotic transition that is very unpredictable. That's why it's called chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, Homer, you nailed it. I mean, obviously, Bevan, you deal with this as well with, your content. It's one thing to make a 1 hour, a film. It's one thing to make a 1 minute video. And it's like, what's going to get more, um, not just attention and eyeballs, because that's not the goal. The goal is activation, inspiration, and transformation to me, as somebody who's out
Well,
there,
and even before it, it's like, you know, what do I think, right? Well, my writing helps me do my thinking, right?
yeah,
Sometimes I don't know what I think until I've sat down to write something. And writing tests your thinking. Like you may think you think something, but when you've written it down, you're like, that's stupid, or that's inconsistent.
yeah,
What do I really think? Like, if this is true, then that must be false. And this conclusion I had must be false. So you have to rework your thinking, and that's work, right? And if you don't exercise that muscle in your brain of thinking and challenging ideas and coming up with solutions to problems, then you're becoming intellectually weaker in the process. And I think that's so. Even before, like, what are the results on other people, it's like, what is the personal result of thinking and writing and working and doing? That's what gives you purpose. That's what gives you your unique exploration and discovery of
yeah,
yourself, and what ideas resonate with you. I think that's what's so important. So if you just tell me what I think, draw me a picture of this, draw me a picture of that, you're not testing your limits, or and when you're not testing your limits, you're not fulfilling your fullest potential. So that's
yeah.
my,
You're not growing. You're
I
not
don't mean to
hitting
sound
that
negative, but
purpose.
it's warning signs.
Yeah. And I think that's unfortunate. I think a lot of the younger generation is defaulting to this, and obviously I think Tomer, you and I are pretty close in our generational
Yeah,
time codex.
right.
I know Bevan, you're a
First of
bit
all, our
younger, but
Genesis
but
loss.
the younger generation is having this default, like, oh, I'll just push a button, it'll solve the problem. I'll push a button, it'll make the art. I'll push a button, it'll do the article. And so, or I'll push a button and I'll have a relationship with somebody. And so we're offloading the humanity of this gift of existence as people in these skin suits to the machines. And so we have to, I think, have more um, opportunities to come together. And obviously this is neat that the three of us are talking and you still think that I'm real, but maybe I'm the AI. um, uh, but like, this is really cool, but it's still digitally, and so it's kind of like,
Hold your hand up again.
I did. Hello. no, I've got
Hi,
7
Bevan.
fingers. I know. Never, here, hold on. I got 7. I'm an AI. But like, coming together in these, real world experiences makes really, great opportunities to create art and create connections and to be human. But like, Bevan, I want to come back to you with, what you congratulations on your new position too at Jan 3 with Samson and everybody. Like, this is amazing because the work that you were putting out there, obviously Samson saw, and I love Samson, and he's just like, hell yeah, dude, come on, we want you to come work with us. And so as a creative, obviously, Tomer, the stuff that you guys got to do together was inspirational. You weren't like hired by XYZ corporation to go pitch, the latest, hardware wallet or whatever. And so you guys did this because it was something that came through your soul, And so there's obviously a difference when we're being creatives from that lens. And then there's a difference when you're a creative from uh, I've got the marketing department to run and I've got to go get some content out for an event or a product launch or a thing, But how do you, Bevan, pull that into this work of yours? Because you're obviously such a beautiful creator, and then now you get to turn into, a collaboration with the company and not just other creatives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess thinking about like the legendary treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto, like that was just a piece that Tomer wrote that really, really spoke to me, right? And so like I
Mhm.
felt it like emotionally. I was like, I already feel this. I didn't have words for it myself, but like reading Tomer's words, I was like, whoa, like you nailed that. Like that's exactly how I feel, and that's why it
Yeah.
became like a viral piece. Was because I'm sure that many, many other people read that piece and were just like, whoa, yeah, like that is also how I feel. I didn't really know how to say that before. And so going back to what you said, like that, it was just like something that I felt like I really wanted to do. Tomer had been looking to do that as well, and so it was just this perfect kind of like joining of passions. And I feel like we're lucky as Bitcoiners. I think a lot of people here are in the space are just feel very passionately about Bitcoin because they know how the positive impact that it can have for all people in the world. And so that like really becomes that push that drives you to want to produce good work, whether that be in the creative fields or in technical fields. Or whatever, like considering me working for Jan 3 right now, and a lot of it is like it's a tech job. It's more corporate than it's things that I've been used to for the last 7 years, decade almost. But in the same way that like I felt passionate about wanting to make a great film with Tomer's writing, I kind of feel the same way about working with them, in that like
Yeah.
I just really I want the world to adopt Bitcoin, right? And I want it to happen fast, slow enough for people to to understand it, but fast enough for it to make an impact in my life, and maybe even in the first half of my life would be great. So anything that I can do to help move that forward, I'm very interested in working on and helping. And particularly this job has already taught me new skills and will in the future. There's constantly things that I'm being asked to do where I'm like, wow, never done that before. I guess I'll try to figure it out. And that's where like going back to what you were saying about like you really have to think for yourself, Tomer. Eh, I feel
Mhm.
like that's a lot of Bitcoiners are get that right, because like they, in order to understand and research the amount that they have about Bitcoin, they've had to like kind of break the status quo of thinking about finance and economics and money and all sorts of things that Bitcoin touches. And so I think like going back to using like AI tools and whatnot, like as long as you have a passion and you like want to do something where you're willing to do the thinking yourself, then that's where it can be like a good collaboration. Something I was thinking about when you were saying that as well is like it's interesting. Like I really wonder how education is going to change because of this.
Yeah.
Like the Gen Zers, the Gen Alpha or Alpha, right? Is it Generation Alpha? Is like after,
I
what
don't
is it?
know what they're what
Yeah,
they're called
yeah,
anymore.
But like, the kids that are like young,
but
like
it's
high
a, I mean,
school
that's a
students,
good
I
example, right? Like we don't even know
yeah,
because we know we can look it up. So
right,
Yeah.
right. But yeah, I just wonder like how, if I'm thinking about myself as a young high school student and I had a hard project that I didn't want to, that I wanted to like go play with my friends or whatever, I would totally get on ChatGPT and just generate it. But
Yeah.
then you've lost that like mental stimulation and the work, the proof of work that you have to do in order to learn that information. And so it's like a catch 22. You're like,
Yeah.
from if you come from a place of passion and a place of thinking, and you use it to augment your thinking and your organization and your ideas, then it can work really well. But if you're just replacing it with machine thinking, then yeah, it actually becomes like a problem, a big problem, because we don't want to raise a generation of people that don't think for themselves. That doesn't
there's a
seem like
very
that would lead
long-term
to a
trend,
good
which is,
future.
Totally. So go ahead, Tomer.
yeah, I was just
And
going to say, there's a
Yeah,
very long-term trend. There's like 100-year, maybe even more, trend of abundance. Technologies that create abundance
yeah.
reduce the quality at the same time, and so you end up with a lot, but you end up with a lower quality, and the part that you end up with less than is all the frills, all the artistry. You end up with reduced products that are just calories, right? Rather than carefully, deliciously, freshly prepared food. You end
Yeah.
up with $5 t-shirts made on mass rather than hand stitched, hand created, unique works of unique articles of clothing. And so this is, and now that we're entering into the intellectual age of mass production, we're going to end up with something like that, which is like an enormous supply of words and pictures, but not, not with the care taken care of to get there. So I think this is a really interesting issue. We just have to watch it unfold, and we have to each take ownership of what experience we're going to have. And everything I said could be wrong. I mean, this could be a pivoting point for humanity, for the better, without the downside. But I think we have to be really careful. And that's certainly what you hear from most of the people who are much more knowledgeable about AI than the three of us, right? It's like, we need to be
yeah,
careful. It's a big opportunity, but it could also be uh, quite harmful. So,
Well,
and
and
we
I
can
think,
be ready for
Tomer, you nailed it too. Just like it's, and I think we spoke about this a couple of years ago on the Swan panel. Just the more easily it is for people to like copy, paste, print, duplicate, whether it's words, music, art, it becomes this like super soup, and you're kind of like, how do I filter out where the good stuff is, where there's actually been not just this copy, paste, and cut and rip and remix kind of thing. Um,
that.
but that's the mentality right now of, the throwaway culture, of this short-term thinking culture, and I think about, I just had this big long, I don't know, a few days ago thing with somebody from Ordinals and all this stuff. And they're like, oh, but it's real. It's like, no, dude, it's a JPEG. Okay, stop. Like, this is not some like scarce thing. It's people can reproduce this and with this, a picture on my phone. But like, the way that things have been so fast with how they get constructed, and the way that it's like, oh, here, let's go build a building, and it's a big giant ugly square white box with some drywall, and then we're going to put a nail up and put some art, versus like, here's a giant cathedral, with like embedded art in the ceilings and stuff that Michelangelo was doing. So it's like, where did we go from consciously thinking like that's the best thing we could do, versus like now we're doing these little square things. And so I think it's a culture thing. And I think, like, Bevan, what you were saying, kids are going to be like, well, I got to go get this assignment done, or I got to go get this thing done for my boss or whatever, my client. And then I'm just going to, what's the path of least resistance and the shortest path? And if that means me putting a prompt in or whatever, copying and pasting and putting that out there, you really, how can we help the younger generation? And I guess I know, Bevan, you've got 7 minutes for your next meeting. How can we help the younger generation of creatives and artists out there who are, blessed with technology, but also cursed with the current programming of this short-term thinking, to like put some more time into your work, put more time into your process, put more time into your craft?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I do have a whole another hour actually, so
You do?
I can
Oh,
stick
good.
around
Is
till
that
till the
so?
end.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell me. I don't. I could talk for 17,000 hours, but tell me
I'm
what's
gonna
your.
I'm gonna have to go in about 15 minutes there.
Okay,
So
perfect. Okay, good,
um,
good, good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so Bevan, I'll let you go first though on
But
that one.
yeah. To that question, it's like I don't know. I kind of think of like what you were just saying about like a lot of Bitcoiners say like we need to return to sound money because like we need to extend our time preference, right? We need to be looking farther advanced in the future and planning for that, and that Bitcoin helps you do that because it grows in value over time, and so you have this way to plan your life over the long term, thinking far out in advance and not just like my next paycheck is coming in and I got to get rid of this paper money because like it's going to be worthless in like 15 years. um, so I think Bitcoin helps with that. Like I wonder if there's like this dichotomy between like having a longer time preference, or sorry, is it lower time preference is the right
Mhm.
term for that, and then AI having us look more short term at our like day to day tasks. In my opinion, like we should look towards creating projects for civilization and humanity, similar to the way that cathedrals were looked at, in the Renaissance and in back in those days in like the 1400s or whatever. Because like those projects took hundreds of years to
Yeah,
create, and so it was like multiple generations of people that were putting their life's work into this one product, not knowing what could happen. Like during the building of that product, it could fall
yeah,
down. Plenty of churches fell down because they built them too tall, and they didn't figure out like the physics behind flying buttresses and buckling walls and stuff. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think Bitcoin helps people think about longer term things like that, and it might be the ballast that allows humans to take advantage of AI, with also having a lower time preference. I don't know if I'm explaining that great,
yeah.
but I hope that there's some future like that where we can get out of the short term thinking that the fiat has kind of bestowed upon society.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of our youth don't know what a hammer and a nail are. They don't know how to change a light bulb. They don't know how to, I literally saw something the other day that was like, there's a study done with young people who don't know how to, I'm like, how do you not know how to change a light bulb? I mean, the tactile nature of building things, has been diminished because of the magic of the digital world, and I feel like, how can we have some fun and get people more excited about building, like I love Gaudi and Park Güell, and the masterpieces that have been built for public art. And obviously Fractal's working on something. A bunch of us are thinking. I have a Peace Park project idea. It's like the more that we can get people out of the screen life into touching things in the world in a place of awe and wonder and collaboration and knowing like, wow, this is what people can do together. It's like our hearts and minds, I think, can come together in a different way as well, and it is that low time preference that, Bitcoiners share. And obviously, um, hopefully the younger generation will start to get that and understand like, why is it important to have that painstaking experience of editing those 2 pages and making sure that the text is here and the picture's here, or the light's going to shine through this way when it's January 21st versus June 21st kind of thing from a light. It's like getting people back into the natural world and you know uh, marrying it with the magic of the digital world, I think, is going to be a fun journey to see what happens here in the next couple decades, with our younger generation. I've got teenagers, and so yeah, so we'll see how that goes. What I want to shut up now. What do you guys have? I know you've only got a few more minutes. What do you have? What's the last couple comments you guys want to make to the general wonderful artistic Bitcoiners out there and people who want to learn about Bitcoin? Like, what pieces of advice would you each give them to um, get started on their Bitcoin artistic journey, and certainly a collaborative journey with perhaps some other Bitcoiners?
I mean, for me, it's put yourself out there for yourself first, right? Like, no, the goal isn't to impress other people; it's to see what you're capable of, and so and don't second guess yourself. Don't worry about imposter syndrome. Go with the flow. Surrender. If you think you can write, like for me, I just remember making the decision that I was going to write, and I was walking through the forest, typing on my phone, and then I sat down afterwards to read, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea I could write so well. So it was kind of this, right? It came through it comes through the doing, and the more you do, the better you get. So don't give up. If at first you don't succeed, try again, because you're actually going to get better. You're going to learn from your mistakes, and get there. So become what you want to be, first and foremost. And then this notion of collaboration, you will find the collaborators you need when you see what the limits of what your ability is and what you envision making that you don't have the ability to do. Right? Like I didn't have the ability to create the video or the music or everything for the movies that I was interested in making, but the universe handed me introductions, which it might have otherwise, and I would have let them go if I wasn't looking for a director, if I wasn't looking for an editor. But I had been looking for these things, and lo and behold, they pass right before your very eyes, and they're looking for you, right? Like they're looking for content to apply their skills of filmmaking, music writing, editing, to. So get yourself out there, start publishing whatever it is that you do as an artist, and be active in having other people see your work, which is your genuine work. It's not something that you created for visual, for engagement, but you created it because it's what you care about and what you love. And then the people you connect with won't be other people who are in it for the wrong reasons. There'll be other people who are in it for the right reasons, with whom your work meshes best. And that's the most satisfying and rewarding artistic type of project that there is.
Yeah, I think it's such good advice, Tomer. And I know, when I had met you and um, read The Legendary Treasure, I was like, oh, wow, we got to make Satoshi the cyber opera. And I started coming with this crazy psycho idea of doing, Burning Man meets Cirque du Soleil meets Truman meets, or is that whatever that
Truman Show.
what I'm talking about. But we started this project, and it was just like, what can we do that's different? That's this mixed multimedia thing. And it was obviously in a bear market, but like we created this whole new version of it that was a little bit different. And now TJ, God bless him, he's in South Africa at adopting Bitcoin. And because he was part of that collaborative team, he's taken, a fork of what we've, all did together, and is making something magical with it. And so it's just really neat to see, like, put yourself out there and reach out to people, and like, don't be afraid. Like, yes, exactly. The bounty of Satoshi. And so I'm so excited for him, because he took something that got, there's no such thing as new art, period. Everything is always like a copy, a ripoff, an inspiration of some other artist, a word, a picture, a color, a combination of it. So for any of us to go like, that's mine, don't take it, like, it's retarded. And so, oh, I said it. I love I'll have to say it again. Sorry, Tomer.
I was just gonna add to that, like, don't be afraid to copy. I think I can't remember. I don't know if it was Picasso or I don't know, some major artist was just like, I don't remember the exact same, but it's like great artists copy, right?
Good artists copy, great artists
and
steal.
they look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's good artists copy, great artists steal. Yeah.
So copy and steal all you want, especially if it's for your own development, and if you're reaching out to the people that you want, to collaborate with, and you're, seeing work from them that speaks to you, right? And that's exactly how Tomer and I got connected. I quite literally, actually, the first few videos that I made of his, I rewrote myself, which was definitely a mistake because it took me a really long time, and then it was just like worse writing. But like at the time, I was just like, I was like, I can't just like, copy this guy's right. Like, I don't want to like, I don't want it to be weird when I send it to him. But then at the same time, like I finally did do one where I just took it verbatim from the article, and it played really well, and it just like added, I think, some some power to the article. And so, don't be afraid to copy. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you've at least grown from that experience.
Yeah, and isn't there a phrase, what is it, like, "It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission" sometimes? And so to, like, what
Yeah,
you did, Bevan, was, like, take something that inspired you, and then you added on it, you embellished it with the visuals and the video part, and so I think a lot of people are so they think like, well, what I need to go call this person or email them or write them, make sure I can have permission to play with their stuff. It's like, just take it and mess it around and then go see if it works. If it doesn't, great, fine, but like obviously don't try to monetize it
right,
and steal anything financially from another artist. That's
right,
not with integrity. But from a creative lens, I think that's a really cool thing, right? It's like you've got this infinite palette of all of these humans out there that have made so many things, and it's kinda like, "Hey, I took your thing and I made a shirt or I did a whatever out of it," it did, and so
yeah,
I think that's something for all of us to enjoy the palette of what's already out there and have some fun kind of remixing it, and obviously as a DJ, like, that's my job. I'm not like, "Oh, I'm making brand new music every time I come up here." I'm taking other people's gorgeous work and celebrating and elevating what they've done and remixing it and doing these fun new things, so it's like, that's what it's meant to do, I think, if it's real art, and so,
exactly.
um, yeah, so I think that's such great advice. So, what do you guys think? I know, Tomer, you gotta said you gotta wrap up a little bit, so I just wanted to, any final
Yeah.
thoughts for the 589 listeners right now?
One last thing. I said before that I was motivated to work on another book, but I did actually publish one more book
Oh, yeah,
because
dude,
somebody else
sorry.
did the
Oh,
work.
oh, god, okay, hold on. I'm
It's
gonna
okay.
let me
Oh, this is the
celebrate you.
children's
Oh, hold
book.
on. I wanna celebrate you, Tomer,
Yeah.
because I forgot, and my bad, totally.
Oh, it's all right.
Tomer wrote this gorgeous book. He put it up, show it up, put it up on the thing. Satoshi Nakamoto and his Bitcoin invention. So Tomer, how cool is it, right? He's writing this cool psychedelic book called Why Bitcoin. He's making all these, generational wild videos, legendary treasure of Satoshi, and then he wrote a children's book. And guess what him and Scott from Shamory did? They donated tons and tons and tons of books to Toys for Tots so that, during the holidays the kids could learn about Bitcoin. But Tomer, talk about that because that was obviously a different collaboration because the art was different and it was more geared for Shamory
Yeah.
art.
I mean,
Let me put that. I gotta get a link out there
the
while you
ori-
talk.
when I did Why Bitcoin, I said like this was so much work, and it was just I didn't feel like I had it in me to write another to put out another book. I had written this very short children's book, which in a sense is like taking the legendary treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto, which is this deep philosophical spiritual essay, and and rewriting it in like 400 words uh, with accessible concepts for children. I wrote it all in one morning, but I was so discouraged from the effort of and this of course needed art because it was a children's book, and
Mhm.
I tried to collaborate with other artists, but I just wasn't getting the right flow working for me, and they were ill and then I was ill, and it was really really difficult, and I thought I would never get this book published. And then at the same conference where Bevan and I met, there was a VIP night, and one of the Swan sales representatives brought over a couple of his clients. He'd heard this book, and he said, "Tomer, tell these people about the book you had." And so I had the text on my phone, and I read it to them, and everybody was crying like with tears of, "You've got to publish this book." And I said, "But it's so hard to publish a book." So I said, "Just get together with Scott from Shamory, and he'll put it together for you." And so I said, I connected with him and I said, absolutely, if you can find the artist and you can publish it, you can you can have all the rights to it and keep all the money from it. And so I'm thrilled after a couple of years after having written it that the thing has seen the light of day. It's fully illustrated. I've seen it read to kids. I mean, I did a bunch of test readings myself when I first wrote it. But then I've seen with with this version of the book, people with kids as young as 2 years old read it to them. People with kids 7, 8, and 9 years old, and the kids love it, and they ask to have it read over and over again to them. And it's a nice story, and it's certainly for Bitcoiners. It really aligns with the Bitcoin ethos and the Bitcoin inspiration and message of hope. So this is available at the Shamory site, Satoshi Nakamoto and his Bitcoin invention. It's all about the creation of Bitcoin, and it kind of tells the story of Satoshi to children, which is a really nice way to tell them. So that's mine.
I love it. Thanks, Tomer. And I think
Can't wait to
that's
check
such
that
a
out.
cool, yeah, it's so cool. And I think again, anyone who's listening out there who's a creative, okay? Like we're in this place where IP is very difficult to be like, oh, it's mine, 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 mine. And I think that's what's really neat about Bitcoiners and creatives in general. It's kind of like, here, just take this creativity and go do something with it and get it out there. Because it's one thing to be in this walled garden mindset, which a lot of people are. And I think that's the unfortunate part. I'm going to call it out again about the ordinals and the inscriptions and the NFT people. It's like, all it is like support your local creator. If you like Tomer's work, send him some sats. Like, do it on Nostr, do it on whatever, buy the books. But like this idea of this, like, I can't let anyone touch my sample or my video or my art or my words. It's very, it's so restrictive in your creative flow and your process. And we've been conditioned by the old system to be in that tight, you know, movie studio or record studio or any of it. Like, don't let your art out there unless you've got a license of that. And so the generosity of the hearts and souls and spirits of Bitcoiners has created a whole new way, I think, for all of us to think as creatives, and so we don't have to be, mine, mine, mine. It's no, it's like ours, ours, ours. And I love that you did that, Tomer. I think it's really, really cool that you gave that to them. And, obviously they're on a mission to educate children in their own unique way. And I love Shamory. They're the best. And so, anyways, it speaks to the ethos of Bitcoiners. And so thanks for doing that.
It's an honor and a pleasure, right? Just being able to, like, if the me from 10 years ago looked at this stuff that I've been able to produce and said, you're going to produce, and someone said, you're going to produce this over the next 5, 10 years, he would have been really delighted. And when I look back, I feel privileged, honored, like blessed, I guess is the right word, to have gotten the opportunity to to be the vessel that brings these things into the world.
Yeah,
And that's the satisfaction in creating art. I know, there may be financial satisfaction that some people are able to generate. That's not necessarily the case for me, but it's not the reason I get involved in art.
totally. And same for you, Bevan, like the work that you've done, and I'm sure you've gotten some commissions to do different things and have been paid, but you can see from the way that your art has been um, uh, growing over time. It's like this is something you wake up and you're excited about. This isn't just, I got to go punch the clock and make some Bitcoin videos and do some storytelling about stuff. It's like just both of you get up,
Yeah.
and me too. Like, I'm just like, how do I get to be a part of this today and make the world a better place, with my gifts? Um, so yeah, the two of you guys
Yeah.
are the bomb. Go ahead, Bevan. Yeah.
It's kind of funny, like if I think about like my career path, like it was very much fueled by like this fiat, like hopelessness, I guess, of being
Yeah.
like, what, if I'm never gonna, you know if I feel like I'm always like failing, I might as well do something I love, you know, um, because then I'll at least have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And that's really like kind of why I chose like the filmmaking path and like kind of went down that, because I was already doing it. I was already doing it just for fun on the side. And so I was like, man, if life is going to be hard, then I might as well do something I love. But then on the flip side, it's like then you start to understand Bitcoin, and you're like, okay, well, doing something you love is actually like, you could help people in certain ways, and
Yeah.
it's not all about money. And there is a future. If you save in Bitcoin slowly over time with little chunks, then yeah, you don't have to have this like doom and gloom kind of perception of the future. You can see that the future could be better than it is today.
Totally. And I
I do
think
have one
something
question
oh,
for
sorry.
Tomer. Sorry,
Yeah, go.
Tomer. You mentioned that you were working on another article similar to like the stature of Bitcoin as generational wealth and legendary treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto.
Did I say that?
Yeah, last time we talked, which was months ago.
Oh
so
my
so
goodness.
maybe there's no progress there.
It's gone
But
in.
I am
I think
curious.
I know which article you're talking about, and it's gone into a little bit of a slumber mode because it's pivot. You know, in the creative process, some of these things pivot, and then other priorities come and they take the
Of
rest. But
course.
there's like, you know, in the unpublished, unfinished works of Tomer Strolite Google Drive, there's a lot of different things over there, and when the time is right, I'm going to return to a bunch of them and finish them off. It just it hasn't been the right time, you know. When you're working on something that's as dear to your heart as like the legendary treasure of Satoshi Nakamoto was to me, you're just not ready to put it out until you've figured out, until you've
Right.
solved the problem that you're trying to answer with it. And I think I've got a number of different pieces out there that are unsolved, right? There's still a work in progress for me, and I can't rely on AI to solve them. And I need time. I need more experience interacting with the world to see what I really feel, so that I can publish it honestly and as a complete work rather than as an unfinished work. But yeah, there's quite a few out there, and I'm not 100% sure of which one I was referring to when I spoke to you, but it's there's nothing imminent. I regret to inform those who are waiting for something.
That's okay. But when that time and place does come to you where you feel like you've had the right experiences to finish the piece, I would love to do another collaboration with you
For
in the
sure.
future.
Isn't that
Yeah.
the coolest thing, you guys? Like, whoever's listening, like, they're both just like, "Yeah, let's work together. It's so fun." Like, I love hearing that. And, and I wanna say something super quick. Tomer, I know you gotta jump off, and so I wanna honor your time, but, people who are artists who are listening, we suffer from, this old mindset, this old code that says we have to be starving artists, and it is a difficult thing when we're in the digital world where everything is reproducible, and then people can go copy your words, your song, your videos, and it's like, how do you support and sustain yourself as an artist? And so what I want to just do a quick super shout out to Noster and Zapping and Value for Value. There are artists out there who, like Ainsley Costello. I got to go to Austin like last month for a Value for Value summit, and talking about how can we use Noster in a way to, not that you're going to pay your mortgage and your rent and get your kids to school with all of this, but at least it will complement you more than just, your 0.0002 cents on Spotify for every play. And so when you think in terms of 1,000 true fans, when you think in terms of community building with the people who love you and are your patrons who can't wait to get the next thing that you created because you keep speaking to their heart, minds, and souls with whatever the form of art is, like Noster creates this really interesting way to have that one-on-one communication and feedback. And it's not just like, it's like you're putting your zaps, your money, your Bitcoin, your sats where your heart and your patronage is. And so I want anybody who's listening to this to start considering, like, get yourself an Nostr account. It's super easy. You can go to Primal, you can go to Damus, you can go to Amethyst, you can go to Nostrudel. There's all sorts of stuff, but like, get an Nostr account and start understanding how Bitcoin can start to help you as a creative, as an artist, put yourself out there. There's a guy, I think it was Henry the Invisible Man, who performed at the Boostergram Ball with Adam Curry and Open, Mike from OpenSats, or Open Mike from Tunester. And now he's like this fucking legend over there on Noster because he keeps just making these like little 1 minute videos of him with his bass guitar and showing everybody how he's making stuff. And people are just zapping him. And he's just like, where have I been? So it's just like, it's all of the art is wants to get in the hands and the hearts of other people. So use Noster, and that's why Bitcoin is such an interesting tool. It's not working on any of these other platforms. So I just wanted to say that you don't have to be a starving artist to be an artist. um, but yeah, so what do we think, guys? Are we good? I want to honor Tomer's time here. Yeah,
Yeah, that
everybody.
was a great conversation. Thanks for
Yeah,
having us on.
totally. Yeah, of course. I love you guys so much. And I can't wait to see what the next collaboration is with the two of you. I know Bevan, when I get done with Bitcoin for Peace, I would love, I know you did a couple of like the interviews in your videos, but I have a little bit more in-depth thing that I'm working on. It'd be great to collab with you on that too. So this will be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
But everybody, you guys make sure you go follow Tomer on X at Tomer Strolite. And then you can follow Bevan as well, Bevan_Waite, WAITE. And everything's going to be in the show notes. And for those of you listening, hey, guess what? Ross is free. I hope he's having a hamburger or something delicious this afternoon for lunch. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
it's
again,
really amazing.
Tomer. Thanks again, Bevan. You guys are the best. And thanks for, teaching the Bitcoiners out here how to be creatives and collaborate.
Thanks for having us, Val.
You're welcome. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Peace, love, and warm aloha. God bless.